And I think one of the biggest aha moments for me, except sort of an aha in reverse, was that I had never realized how much of my own self-identity and self-worth was tied up in what my title was and who I worked for. And when that was taken away from me, I felt very lost. Like I had no idea who I was if I couldn't say that I was a VP at Ralph Lauren, right? That was
Yeah.
just such a big piece of my identity. And I think one of the biggest aha moments for me, except sort of an aha in reverse, was that I had never realized how much of my own self-identity and self-worth was tied up in what my title was and who I worked for. And when that was taken away from me, I felt very lost. Like I had no idea who I was if I couldn't say that I was a VP at Ralph Lauren, right? That was
Yeah.
just such a big piece of my identity.
Hey everyone, welcome to Reanimated Stories. This is Roger, your host, and today I am really excited. I have a really awesome guest, Melissa. If you have been anywhere on LinkedIn, you have definitely seen Melissa Cohen, and I am extremely honored and blessed and humbled that she decided to jump on my podcast. And we'll talk a little bit about how we met and all that. But Melissa, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it is really cool. So we met through Success Champions Network, and every year they have a summit. And at the summit, I tell people this all the time. It's a 3 day summit, and every time there was a day I was sitting there, and the VIP speaker, I was sitting next to him, and I didn't even realize it. Kevin Turner, also from who does LinkedIn, Liam Darmody. I had sat next to all of them, and even Melissa, and I said, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" And then all of a sudden they're like, and now we have so and so. And then they walked up on stage and I said, hey, I was sitting next to them. And I think sometimes we get this idea of, man, if I got to this certain point or whatever, I'm going to, if I got to this certain point, people would instantly recognize me. And I felt so bad because I was like, I didn't recognize any of them. But what really got me was that for each and every single one of you is that you guys were all just so extremely humble. It wasn't like a, hey, man, listen, you can't sit at this table, right? Like you need to go
Mean Girls.
yeah. You're not wearing pink and it's Wednesday, so we only wear pink on Wednesdays, right? But that you guys are just so humble. And so, Melissa, again, I appreciate you coming out on the podcast. So, Melissa, for those of you who don't really know who you are, probably living under a rock or maybe are not on LinkedIn, would you please tell us who you are and what you do?
Oh, absolutely. I'm Melissa Cohen. I'm a personal branding and LinkedIn strategist. So I help executives, founders, small business owners leverage the magic of LinkedIn for both personal and business growth.
And that is just a short thing of what she does. If you go to her LinkedIn, you will see the numerous things that she does. So we're going to kind of hit on a few of those. And not only does she help with personal branding, but she also has has recently also authored a book, Letters to Lily. Is that correct?
Yes, I
Yeah.
co-authored a book. It is called Letters to Lily, and it is something that's super special to my heart. Lily is an acronym for
Okay.
Lessons in Leadership and Loving Yourself. And
Oops. Hold on just one moment. Melissa, it looks like you got muted. Don't know why.
I
Oh,
did, and I don't know why, because I
yeah.
didn't touch anything.
Yeah, that was
That
weird. Yeah, no, you were talking and then it just decided to. That was weird. All right. Well,
would you like me
go
to start
ahead.
there all over
Yeah,
again?
yeah. Go ahead and just start it from Letters to Lily. Yep.
Okay. Yes. So I did recently co-author a book called Letters to Lily. And Lily is an acronym for Lessons in Leadership and Loving Yourself. And I co-authored it
Okay.
with my friend Alexian Wines. It was her baby, her idea. And it's actually an anthology. So it's an
Okay.
anthology
Cool.
of letters to a younger self. And these are things that the contributors wished that their younger selves could have known. And we got them from
That's
all over the
awesome.
world. We got them from Asia, Europe, the United States, Canada. And I think what was really special to me was, Lily obviously is a woman's name. And I wasn't sure if it was going to resonate as much with men. But some of the most beautiful letters that we got were actually from men. Some of them are a few of our friends at SCN. Donnie
Oh,
was one of the
okay, all right.
letters. Yes, we have some beautiful letters in there. And it's really just something that's really close to my heart. I think we all need a book like this just to remind us that no matter where we sit in the world and no matter what we're going through, we're not alone. Someone else has gone through something similar and they came through the other side, and you will too. So I'm really excited about it. It's been really magical.
Yeah, no, that is a really cool that sounds like a really great book. And I love what you just said there about how someone has been through there, someone has gone through. I was actually just earlier today at the time of this recording, I was in a meeting with somebody and we were talking and it was like sometimes you just kind of feel and it could be whether you're a business owner, whether you're in a position C-suite, you're working, it doesn't matter where you're at. Sometimes it's like, "Oh, you know what? I think I can do this." Then there's other days where you're just like, man, I don't know. Is this actually working? If you're a business owner, am I doing the right thing? If you're in a position somewhere, doesn't matter what level, it's like, am I supposed to be where I'm at? And then other days you're just like, I don't know if this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And yet at that, yeah, and yet in that, you can also be like, well, I know someone has been here before that. I know someone has done this business before. I know someone has been in the position that I've been in before, and so that's really cool. I really love that. So let
Yeah.
me kind of sidestep for a second. And so you have been doing personal branding on LinkedIn, and that's kind of where I've seen you, and I know that you've done that. You've done panels. I know you've done panels in New York, and you've done this in other places as well, right? For personal branding on LinkedIn. Can we talk a
Yes.
little bit about the panels that you're on, but also what is personal branding on LinkedIn, and how did you kind of come about that?
Yeah, sure. So it's a little bit of a long story. I'll try really hard to give you the Cliff Notes version. I never expected to be doing this ever. I worked in the fashion industry. That's what I did. That's what I always wanted to do. I remember being in high school and people came from one of the fashion schools for like a college and career fair. And it was life changing for me because all of a sudden I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. Because I really didn't know. And I think I have a very vague memory of my dad thinking it would be great for me to be an accountant. And no offense to any accountants listening, you're all wonderful, but not for me. Your girl doesn't like math. I just all of a sudden had an idea of what my career could be. And so that's what I did for 30 years. I was in product development and production on manufacturing and sourcing side. And I was with my dream company. I worked with Ralph Lauren. I was there for over 11 years. And I just figured that was going to be where I retired. And then 2020 happened. And so lost my job. The whole industry was just completely in turmoil from the pandemic, right? Because nobody was buying clothes.
Yeah,
So people were getting laid off left and right. I lived then, as I do now, in New York City. New York City, COVID, lockdowns, really not a lot of
yeah,
fun.
yeah,
And I think one of the biggest aha moments for me, except sort of an aha in reverse, was that I had never realized how much of my own self identity and self worth was tied up in what my title was and who I worked for. And when that was taken away from me, I felt very lost. Like I had no idea who I was if I couldn't say that I was a VP at Ralph Lauren, right? That was
yeah,
just such a big piece of my identity. And I had never heard of the term personal branding. It didn't mean anything to me. And I didn't use LinkedIn. I was not a social media user. I went back and looked to see, oh, when did I join LinkedIn anyway? 2008 was when I
wow,
joined. And 2020 was the first time that I made a comment, made a post, did anything because I said, oh, I'm going to need another job. And I don't think I'm going to get a job the way I always had in the past, which was through my network, right? Because my network was all going through the same thing that I was.
mm,
So I figured I better go check out that LinkedIn thing. And I was just shocked at how different it was.
yeah,
And it wasn't this super boring place where you let your network know you needed a job and then let your network know you had a job. And that was it, right? Those are the only two things you ever did.
yeah,
People were really engaging with one another, right? And having conversations. And so I started to really learn the value of being visible, right? Because that's what personal branding is. It's being visible It's standing out, it's being memorable, it's letting people know who you are, what you do, what matters to you, who you serve, why you're there, all these things, right? And no one was more surprised than me by how much I really started to enjoy it. The first time I made a post, I had to get up and walk out of the room so that I wouldn't delete it because I was terrified. I thought people were
Mhm.
gonna be mean to me, and listen, they could have been. It was a terrible post. It's everything I would tell people today, like, "Oh, don't do that," because I didn't know any better. But I survived, right? And now I'm on LinkedIn every day. I post probably 4 to 5 times a week, and I will tell you with no exaggeration, LinkedIn changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny. You just mentioned that, oh, we kind of have this idea of what LinkedIn is, right? It's, oh, hey, I got a job. And then, okay, no, I'm looking for a job, right? Or something. And that's kind of, I saw this one video and it was a while ago. I can't remember where I saw it, but it was like, what if early 2000 LinkedIn conversations happened, and the guy, and they were like sitting at like a table or something, and he was just like, guys, I'm proud to announce that I'm going to order this pizza or something like that. And then they're like, hey, I support that. They just kind of went back and forth. And that's kind of what you think, LinkedIn was. And I remember when I had started LinkedIn, I can't remember what year it was, but I want to say it was probably around that time. I want to say it was probably 2019, maybe before that, right? Like I had just kind of jumped on there, but I didn't do anything with it. But I remember seeing that and thinking, with the very limited time that I was on there, I was like, oh, this is just people like saying like, I'm so excited to do this. But yeah, as I started getting into it, as I really started to think like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can use this to find a job. Cause at that point I was in retail and I was wanting to do web development. I was like, oh, okay, people are actually doing something a little different here. And the level of conversation was definitely a little, different. It wasn't like, the Patriots suck and, Dallas Cowboys are, and it's like armchair quarterbacks, right? And talking about stuff. It was about like, oh, okay, people are having some, and obviously you're always going to find stuff, similar to that on any social media platform, but there's definitely a different level. So you had no longer the position that you had at Ralph Lauren. So now you were on LinkedIn and you just started to post and now you're posting 4 to 5 times a week. What made you start to transition from like, oh, I can actually I can actually make a living. I can do something with this. When did that kind of that change? And when were you no longer like, well, because I assume, right, you're like, well, I'm not going to do the fashion thing anymore. I'm now here in LinkedIn and now I'm doing the LinkedIn thing. So what was that kind of that transition?
Yeah, so it wasn't a switch that flipped, it was definitely a progression.
Yeah.
So for a while, there was no job, right? There was nothing because it was the pandemic and it was
Yeah.
terrible. And then I started to interview for full-time corporate roles, and I will tell you that was probably one of the worst experiences I've had in my career, right? I was already in my 50s. Ageism is a real thing. Wanting to hire people for the experience that they have is a real
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And I think finally, sort of the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back was I had 2 job searches kind of going in parallel, and they were both situations where I'd been referred from someone at a very high level, personally. And they both just ended in really disappointing ways. But the second one was probably the most disappointing. Multiple rounds of interviews, interviewed with everyone, my direct boss, my peers, all the way up to the president of the organization. And I was in very close contact with their internal head of HR, whatever her title was. And the last conversation I had with her was, "You're our top candidate. I'm going to have a conversation with the president on Monday to discuss the next steps, and I'll keep you closely posted." And I never heard from them again.
Oh my
Completely
God.
ghosted, never responded to, my reaching back out. And I just kind of said, what am I doing here? What is this? If after all this time, energy, and effort, this is where I am, is this really what I want to still be doing? And so I had actually started consulting a little bit in the fashion space, right? Just by chance. A friend of mine who had been one of my design partners at Ralph was consulting. And she told me, "Melissa, I never want to have another full-time job again." And I thought she was crazy. I
Yeah.
remember physically having this like visceral reaction of, oh my God, why would you ever say that? Like, that's the
Yeah.
worst thing you could ever say, right?
Yeah.
And so I started to consult a little bit here and there, and I actually ended up really liking it, much to my surprise. I never thought that I would, because I never thought of myself as entrepreneurial. I had spent my whole life in corporate. But what had also happened at the same time was I had really started to build a following on LinkedIn. I had built a community, people that, engaged with me regularly, supported me regularly. I was posting more frequently, and people started to ask me how I did it. And they started asking me if I would help them, and they were willing to pay
That's
me.
cool.
And I was like, huh, that's interesting. I was like, sure. And so that was sort of my side hustle, right? I never
Sure.
expected it to really turn into anything, but I loved it. And the more that I loved it, the more I spent time learning and researching and figuring out the best ways to do things on LinkedIn, learning more and more about branding. And I just fell in love with it. And I ended up deciding in 2024 that that's what I wanted to do full time. 30 plus years in the fashion industry was a good run. I really enjoyed it. I learned a ton. It was super good to me, but I'm really enjoying what I'm doing now.
That's really cool. So you had mentioned about ageism, and yes, it always surprises me how it's like, well, let's get somebody young and new, and it's like, but you have somebody who's been through all of that. Like, why are you trying to make the same mistake over again? Anyway, yeah, it's very interesting that the whole ageism thing, and I've had multiple people that I've talked to, and it's like, yeah, and I've already had like 20 interviews, and it's like I'm more than qualified, and it's like, well, they're probably, then it comes out they're just trying to find somebody young or whatever and
Less
stuff, and
expensive.
exactly. I was going to say
Yeah.
less expensive with less experience and more mistakes, but anyway, that's a whole nother podcast. So as you are doing this personal branding, so how are you helping people with the personal branding? Is it people who are looking for jobs, or is it people that are starting businesses, entrepreneurs? Is it a mix? How does that, who are the people that you're really helping?
Yeah, it's a mix. It's more the entrepreneurs, executives, founders, but I do have an absolute soft spot in my heart for people who are in job search. And so I do work with people in job search too, because I've been there, right? I've been there
Yeah.
twice. I've been laid off twice in my career, and I know how hard it is to be looking for a job. And I think we all know in our hearts, the first place a hiring manager, a recruiter, an HR person is going to look is your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And so if your LinkedIn doesn't send a good message or doesn't send a message at all, it's not
Mm,
helping you, right? Because just as bad as having a LinkedIn that doesn't send a good message is having one that's virtually non-existent. If somebody tries to find you on LinkedIn and they can't, or it's no profile photo, no banner, and 3 connections, that also kind of sends a negative message, right? Because in this day and age, who doesn't have a good LinkedIn profile? You'd be surprised, right? How many people don't. They
yeah.
just never put the effort into it. And so I do help job seekers as well. It's a little bit of a different conversation,
Yeah.
because most job seekers are not as interested in putting out content. Although I would say it's a way to stand out. Now, you have to be more thoughtful in how you put out content, right? You want to keep it very focused on industry insights, trends, things that show your expertise. But it's a way to stand out in a really crowded job market, right? If you can show that recruiter or you can show that hiring manager just by a few posts some of the insights that you have or the way that you think, it can definitely be an advantage.
And having said that, I think that's a really key point, is that this is how you stand out. If people in your industry are not doing that, or people who are doing something that you're, okay, well, I'm just trying to find a job. But if you're putting out some thoughtful posts and you're really kind of thinking through that, that's really going to help you stand out. And especially for certain industries, because you had mentioned you go and you think, well, everybody's got a LinkedIn, like, right? Because it used to be, well, everybody's got a Facebook and stuff. And now it's like LinkedIn for like business, right? And there are certain industries that I've noticed that I tend to try to work with. It's like you're kind of missing out on this LinkedIn thing. You don't have to make it like Facebook, but if you put out some thoughtful things, you're really going to start to stand out. And so that's really cool that you're helping that. And that also plays a lot into what you had talked about with your letters to Lily. And so I'm sure a lot of that experience is being put into as you're helping job seekers, as you're helping C-suite execs and entrepreneurs, and also thinking through, hey, I've been here in this leadership, and let me help you with my experience. So tell me a little bit about the background of your, I guess the book in general, but kind of your portion of that, of the letters to Lily.
Yeah. So the whole book came about. Allie Alexian and I met on a women's leadership retreat. We happened to be seated together and we started talking, and she started sharing a little bit of her story with me. And her story is amazing. And she asked me obviously about what I did, and I told her, and she said something, I'm paraphrasing, but oh, yeah, I need help with my LinkedIn. And I said, let's do it, And so we started to work on that together, and she had this idea of letters to Lily that she had been writing. And she said, do you think that LinkedIn is a vehicle for this? And I said, absolutely. People want to hear these stories. People will see themselves in these letters and they will resonate. And so we started sharing them on LinkedIn. And then people started wanting to share their own. So we created an email address. It's still active,
Oh, that's
yourletterstolily@gmail.com.
cool.
Send them on in. And people shared their letters to be posted on LinkedIn. And something that we do, which is also throughout the book, is if people want, they can share a photo of their younger self.
Cool.
So it's a photo of them as a child or as a young adult. And we got a great response to that. People were really excited to share their stories, to have their stories shared on LinkedIn. And then, so Allie's in the DC area. I happen to be in DC, and we had lunch together. And she said, feel free to say no, but I have to ask you something. Do you think this could be a book? And would you want to work on this as a book together? And I said, absolutely. Like, there is no question to me that this should be a book. I told her, and this is from my heart, I said, it's going to be a movement. And I really think that it is. I think we are we've never been more connected, right? Technology has made it super easy for us to be connected to anyone, anywhere, anytime. You and I are in completely different states. We're having a conversation. I can see your face. You can see mine. We can hear each other's voices. We can be connected by Zoom, Teams, Google, anything and everything. We've also never been more isolated. And there's a connection between those two things, right? We have almost stopped valuing that human face-to-face, in-person connection because the technology makes it so easy to avoid.
Yeah.
And Letters to Lily is really just about that connection between people all around the world. We all see each other, or we all see ourselves in each other's stories. And I think it's so important. And I think leadership needs this, right?
Mm,
Leadership
yeah.
needs to take these stories into account. And you need to lead yourself really well before you can lead others. And I think all these things are just really coming together beautifully in this book. I have two letters in this book. So one is just a letter to my youngest self, telling myself, so I had to do a leadership exercise once. I was in this, cohort, and we got this exercise, and the exercise was, if you were writing your memoir, what would it be titled? And so mine was, It All Works Out in the End. And that was my letter to myself. It all works out in the end. You don't have to worry so much, right? I was always a worrier. I was always worried. Is this going to work out okay? Am I making the right move here? Am I making the right decision? Should I have taken this job over that job? Is this really what I should have gone to school for? Right? I went to school. I was an Italian language and literature major. Super fun. I got to study abroad in Rome. Nothing could be better. Not exactly great career opportunities coming out of university with a foreign language degree. It all worked out in the end,
Yeah.
right? So that was my first letter. And the second letter is really personal, and it was a letter to myself in my corporate years as a new mother or a recent mother, because I traveled a ton. I went to Asia every quarter for like 2 weeks at a time. And that's really hard when you're a mom. You miss a lot, right? It's a 12 to 13-hour time difference. It's a 17-hour flight. You have horrible jet lag. You're calling, it's your nighttime, you're exhausted. You've just put in this long day, long meetings. You probably just had to sit through some kind of vendor dinner and you're calling and, everybody's rushing to go off to school, right? My husband's like,
Yeah.
hurry up, talk to her for 5 minutes. We have to go to school, and then the reverse, right? That in
Yeah.
my mornings, it's their nighttime. They've had a long day. She's tired. And there's a lot of guilt that's associated with that,
Yeah.
right?
I
You
bet.
feel, am I being a good mother? Am I doing the right thing? And I'm super fortunate, right? Have a wonderful husband at home who was able to take care of her and, was able to pick up the slack while I was traveling. And I talk about this in the book, right? She fell in love with reading and is still an avid reader to this day because I was away and he started reading Harry Potter to her. And she was never that into the books until Harry Potter came along, and Harry Potter just, transformed everything.
Yeah.
And my daughter's 20 now, and she's a wonderful, wonderful person, right? Kind, smart, loving. She and I are very close. And so, again, it's sort of that theme of it all works out in the end. But,
Yeah.
I think a lot of working women and working dads too will see themselves in that letter.
Yeah. Well, I resonate with that because so we just had spring break here in the Central Texas area, and the first 2 days I said, okay, listen, Monday and Tuesday I'm just gonna do trainings, meetings. I'm just gonna do meetings. I have a whole bunch of things I got to work on. But then Wednesday through Friday, I'm just very little. I'm just gonna I blocked it all off. If something comes up, I'll do it. But that was really hard, and that was just 2 days, right? That wasn't across the world in Asia, right? That was 2 days. And they came in a couple of times and like he's 5 now, but he
Oh,
came in and he grabbed the paper and just kind of looks at me and just kind of waddles back out, like I got my paper. And then he comes back out. And then, they kept saying like, hey, are you gonna, come do something? I said, I am, like, I want to, and like some of them went a little later, but yeah, it was hard. And so, yeah, I think that is a powerful, powerful thing, whether, you're a mom who's in Asia, that's, 13 hours having to do that, or whether you're a dad. And I think that that's a beautiful, beautiful letter. So I
thank
appreciate you
you.
sharing that, and we'll definitely have that in the description as well.
Wow.
So, yeah, no, of course. Melissa, if someone was listening and they were thinking, well, one, I got to pick up this book, but two, I've heard about maybe this LinkedIn branding, and I don't know if I necessarily want to be an influencer, or I'm not really sure what all of this is kind of about. What are some things that they need to think through if they were just like, maybe I'll reach out to Melissa, or maybe I'll just kind of figure out what this LinkedIn branding is, but what is it that they need to think about it? And what is it that they need to do to kind of understand LinkedIn branding, and just what are some things just in personal branding that they really need to think through?
Yeah. My goal is never to make anybody an influencer. Like, if you want to be an influencer, I'm probably not the right person for you because what does that really mean? Right?
Yeah.
If I don't have any affection for vanity metrics, right? You probably
Yeah.
heard me talk about this whole, engagement pod thing, right? You
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
you can pay somebody and all of your posts can be put into some ridiculous engagement pod where a whole bunch of fake accounts go in and like your post and comment on your post, and all of a sudden you'll have 2,000 likes on every single thing that you post.
Yeah.
And then what? What does that
Yeah.
do for you? It's an ego boost, right? But what is
Yeah.
that actually doing for you? So for me, what you want to do on LinkedIn is stand out, especially in this age of AI, right? So everybody is using AI now. And I'm not anti AI. I'm not here to preach and say, don't use AI, it's evil. AI is here to stay. I do have some really strong dystopian fear that the robots are going to take over, but
Yeah.
that's for another
100%.
podcast.
Yeah.
Um,
Whoa.
that's a whole different conversation. Use it use it as a tool, not as a replacement for your own thoughts, your own voice, your own unique style. I think we can all tell when somebody has a post that was copy pasted out of ChatGPT. And that's one of the things that I started seeing on LinkedIn was I call it this sea of sameness. I'll read something and I'll
Mm,
think, didn't I just read that? I could swear I just read that, right? Because everybody starts to sound the same. That's what AI does. It sort of democratizes everything so that it just
Yes.
sounds very bland, right?
Yeah.
You are the only person on earth who has had your exact set of lived experiences, right? Nobody else has had that. So that's your gift. That's your differentiator. That's what you want to use, and that's what needs to come through when you write, when you talk about things. I don't want to hear the AI version of Roger, right? I want to hear your version. I want to hear what you think. I want to hear what you experienced. I want to hear how you feel about things. And so for me, LinkedIn and thought leadership or personal brand or whatever fuzzy little term we want to use, it's really just letting people know who you are, what you stand for, what matters to you. And it's helping you to stand out, right? Like we were talking before about if you're in job search, it's something that can make you stand out from other candidates. If people are going to hire you, right? If you are a business owner or you offer services, you're a coach, people want to know more about you, right? Because people want to work with people. I always joke that so you can tell I knew nothing about branding by the name of my company. My company name is my initials because I just
Yeah.
I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. NBC
Yeah.
Consulting.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about NBC Consulting Solutions, right? I have a company page on LinkedIn for one reason, and that is so that next to that experience is my little logo. It's not the sad
Yeah.
gray bars, right? Because the sad gray
Yes.
bars, just instant like lack of
Yeah.
credibility, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody is going to hire me because of my company. They're going to hire me because of me. They like me, they know me, they trust me, they like what I have to say, they like what they see me posting. And that's the reason to invest in yourself and a personal brand because people want to work with people, not with companies.
Yeah. That's what I think that's wonderful. Everything that you just said, especially there at the end, people want to work with other people. And, you think about AI and, I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, AI is great. It's great for thinking and stuff like that. But the one advantage that you have is that if you can sound different, right? Instead of just like you said, the sea of sameness, people are going to be able to tell, oh, that's Melissa, that's John, that's Roger, that's so and so. That's them talking and not, ChatGPT and all that. And at the end of the day, people are going to want to buy you, and that's something that I help people think through, like SEO and video marketing through their website and all that. But yeah, same thing. People are going to buy you and they go to your LinkedIn. They want to see, oh, is this a real person that's actually doing that? And yes, if you're going to have a company, please create a company page just so that you can have your logo there. Cause I see that all the time. Yeah. You
Exactly.
know,
That little gray box.
yeah, yeah. I see that and I'm like, oh, that really, you need to just create a company page. Just put a logo on it just for the very reason that Melissa just said, so that you can put your logo on there. One of the things that I've seen that you do, and that's really cool, and because you're not trying to turn people into influencers, but I love that you practice what you preach. Is that you on Sunday, you do it on Sunday, and then I think you do 4 to follow, and then you
Yeah.
do you do also the ones. These are the ones that these are some
The
things that I've
nuggets.
seen. Yes,
Yeah.
there you go, LinkedIn. I'm like, sorry, I had it in my head and I was like, what in the world? Why am I losing it now? Yes, your LinkedIn nuggets, and you showcase people of, hey, these are some really cool thoughts, and I always enjoy reading those because it's like, oh, that's really awesome, and that just it's one of those things where it's just like you said, it's not a vanity metrics. It's not about you. It's about, hey, I'm showcasing somebody else. And I think that that's sometimes that's a lost art, right? And so you're showing, hey, this made an impact on my life. And I want you to read it too. And I want you to kind of think about it and all that. So I think that that's really cool. So if you're listening to this, don't forget to check for Melissa's LinkedIn nuggets. And so those are really great. So I always appreciate you sharing that.
Oh,
Well,
I
Melissa,
really
oh,
appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah, no. Oh, yeah, no, of course. I thought it was really cool. And obviously, we're going to find you on LinkedIn and you'll see all the different things that Melissa is doing. But where else can they connect with you as well? I know obviously on LinkedIn, but where can they connect with you online? When they get to your website, what is it that you want them to do? Where do you want them to connect with you and how do you want them to find you?
Yeah, thanks so much. LinkedIn, absolutely the best place to find me. Also, my website, which is my full name. So it's melissabethcohen.com, because I always like to joke if you just search for Melissa Cohen, you will get Hunter Biden's wife. True story.
Oh,
So yes, so you have to have my middle name in there, melissabethcohen.com. And yeah, I have two newsletters. One is on LinkedIn, so that's the Caffeinated Chronicles, and the other is Brewing Your Brand, which you can subscribe to on my website.
cool. Very nice. I did not know that about whose wife? You said Hunter Biden's wife
Hunter
is.
Biden's wife's name is Melissa
Oh,
Cohen.
I
Yes.
did not know that. That is too funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you type in my name on Google, eventually you'll get to where I am my last name, but it's my last name and my first name, but it's backwards. It's like Jones Roger, like automotive, or in some place in like Sweden or something,
Oh, that's funny.
something like that. Yeah, it's something in Sweden or someplace like that. I don't know, but yeah, it's or maybe it's Germany. But anyway, yeah, no, that's funny. So okay, cool. Well, we'll definitely put all that in. We'll put all those links in the description. So don't forget to check out Melissa's LinkedIn. Don't forget to check her website out, and definitely don't forget to check out her book. And make sure that you put Melissa Beth Cohen, or else you will get the wrong Melissa. So, Melissa, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. It's so much fun. I really enjoyed it.